as if, in fact, he needed one. But I don't know if anybody earns his pay more than Nick Saban, the Alabama football coach. Of course, Kirby Smart got something. Coaches get bumps all the time for their success. Sometimes they even get bumps even if they're expected to have success. It's the way it is in the business. Dave Aranda last year, remember, got himself one heck of an extension, as did Mack Rhodes and even Dr. Livingstone at Baylor. Nick Saban is back to being the highest-paid football coach at a public university, paying him an average. Again, the amended deal runs through February 2030. Will pay him an average of $11.7 million per year. Kirby Smart signed a new deal on average $11.2 million over 10 years, and it just keeps on the escalators, or the word, whatever you want to use. It's truly amazing, because I remember, and again, because I'm old, when the first coach got $1 million, and then it was 2.5, then it was 3, then it was 5, then it was 6, and it was 7, and it doesn't stop. It doesn't stop, and if anyone's earned that money, you know, I'm sure there's a debate about this, but I think Nick Saban's right there at the top of the conversation.
I mean, I don't think you can. I think you can probably debate how much he's earning but I mean, what he brings to college football and that university and the attention and what he's done. Look, the rest of the Southeast Conference owes Nick Saban for keeping that consistent.
Is he to the SEC what Nicholas Palmer and Tiger are to the PGA Tour?
I think so, because
I may be over that.
Well, no, but I mean, they're all they've had good teams that have come up and come down, you know, throughout this run of where the SEC, quote unquote, it just means more. But he's been the constant. Everybody, you know, LSU's won 3 national titles, but they win one and then they kind of go into a hole and, you know, reemerge later on, and then they come back. You know, Auburn won one, and they, you know, haven't been back. Tennessee was kind of before this. Florida has won one. You know, Georgia is now up there with them, but it took Georgia some time to be not just a team that was 9-3 or 10-2 every year, losing close games or losing in the SEC title game. That took them some time to get to where they were. Alabama in this run of the SEC has been the one absolute constant, and yeah, I mean, absolutely. So he's earned that. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous that a coach is, you know, making $11 million based on, you know, what we know of the game and all that. But, I mean, I'm sure the university makes it back. Moreover,
it's not that ridiculous when a conference just signed $1 billion plus TV deal, you know, and nobody probably in that entire ordeal has affected college football as much as Nick Saban over the last 2 decades. Yeah. So I think that if anybody's justifying their pay, it's someone like him. You know, I do wonder about some of those others and, like, the matching game, and then how that turns out to where all of a sudden, like, just borderline national championship coaches are making $10 million in the next couple of years because that's just where the market went. Well, yeah, the market's the reason why you're now in this big problem and this big puzzle that you're trying to figure out as far as college football and money and paying and players and you know, all the other things that have come with that, you know, that part of the NCAA that just didn't want to recognize what everybody else saw very clearly and just thought that they could keep paying coaches $10 million a year and no one would notice that they were the only ones getting paid. And, you know, here we are. But, yeah, if somebody deserved it, it would be Nick Saban. And looking at the highest paid SEC coaches now, you got Kirby Smart. I mean, that's fine. He just got a bump. He deserves it. He just won a national title. Brian Kelly at $9.5 million for LSU. I mean, that's based obviously on what he did for Notre Dame, but $9.5 million. Jimbo, $9 million per year. I mean, hasn't even won a division yet. Lane Kiffin, 7.25, and then Billy Napier starting out at 7.1, the 5th or 6th highest paid head coach in the SEC. So I don't know where the cap is going to be eventually on these contracts, but if Billy Napier hadn't coached down, he's already making $7 million a year. Then my goodness, like it's. Jimbo, like average coaches are going to be making $10 million in probably the next 5 years.
So basically, here's what I heard from that.
Remember Mel Tucker? It seemed like, oh my God,
you see what he like got? Nothing now. Yeah.
But Billy Napier's
he's already 5th now.
$7.1 million, and this is his first time as a Power 5 coach. So Jimbo Fisher's national title 9 years ago is worth $2 million.
Yeah, a little less, but yeah.
Yeah, about. I mean,
Fisher's now the 10th highest paid coach. On salaries.
Yeah.
He's already 10th. Like, he's dropped that far. Here's a couple. Dabo Swinney's 8th. I mean, okay, I'm sure if he wanted to push the envelope, 8.3. David Shaw, who I think is fantastic, but they've kind of been through a little bit of the ups and not even the ups, $8.9 million. Ryan Day, 9.5. Mel Tucker, Brian Kelly, 9.5. Lincoln Riley, 10+. It's hardball. Remember, his deal was, wow, $7 million. Franklin, $7 million. I'm not against any of them getting every nickel, a dime, and penny. Good for them. Here's one of the things I've always wondered about, though. You guys tell me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, but like, what's the cap though? Like, eventually, and I know I don't want to hear from Mr. Free Market, like the most annoying people on earth. That's not America. You know, like, no, I get it, but like, I mean, are we really going to be talking about paying $20 million for a college football head coach one day? Because like, I know that sounds ridiculous, but I think people probably thought it would be ridiculous if multiple guys are making $10+ million and we're there already.
Do you know how many NFL coaches get over $10 million?
Well, that's what I was going to get to. Is like
Sean McVay, Bill Belichick, and Pete Carroll.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I was going to circle back to, was like the NFL coaches don't even make this much money most of the time. So that's what I mean is like, geez Louise, like at what point does it kind of have a ceiling to it? Because right now the ceiling's getting raised by Mel Tucker, by Nick Saban, by Lincoln Riley to USC, by Brian Kelly to LSU. And so there's a reason for it to have bumped up here lately. But like, yeah, what is that? I mean, are we in the new Big Ten with this, whatever this new era that Kevin Warren's, orchestrating along with Greg Sankey? Is that just going to be the norm? $15 million a year head coaches because they're all making $1 billion anyways?
Well, and it's interesting you bring that up.
It's not going down.
No, I know,
But also, Mr. Free Market is usually also the guy who is like, it's ruining college sports, and it's not going to be what we knew because players are getting paid. Well, the players were pawns in the free market.
Yeah.
So they weren't even, that's not even capitalism. That like, so the players are helping them make this money because Nick Saban doesn't get $11 million without being able to bring in good players and keep them there. So that's where it is. So that's why players are starting to see it because, again, I don't know how many of you have ever been at a job where you've gone in and asked for a raise and your boss has told you no, and then 3 days later, he goes on his boat trip, and you're like, I don't understand, like, what's going on here. That's what's kind of was going on in college football, where for a while there, the players couldn't say anything about getting paid because the coaches are getting paid, like a really good high school principal. Like, that's what they were getting in the 70s and whatever. They'd make decent money, but they weren't knocking out of the ballpark. And then all of a sudden, when you turn around and a coach makes $1 million and the players make nothing, when the coaches make $4 million and the players make nothing, when the coach makes $11 million and the players aren't making anything, the players and their families and people around them are going, well, why does this coach get $11 million and everyone else gets zero when everybody was so surprised when they got $1 million? They've now far surpassed that. Inflation or not, cost of living or not, that's huge. So people are going to want a piece of that pie.
Sean McVay estimated 15 to 18 million, just won a Super Bowl. He's the young star, hot coach. May never win another Super Bowl, but hey, good for him. Good for all of them. Good for the players, good for the coaches, good for anyone who could make more, whether it's us or anyone else. But it is amazing. It is amazing how this does not. So Kirby Smart gets a bump because he beat Alabama, wins the national title. Then Nick Saban gets a bump to be more than Kirby Smart. And then here's going to be somebody else who gets a bump. And it's not going to stop. It's part of the free market, yes, but at the same time, you wonder. And if you don't get this kind of TV money, the $1 billion or whatever it's going to be, woo.
Well, and then, okay, well, how are you getting players? How are people getting players nowadays? You're recruiting, but NIL, and then there's the other. So yeah, that's what I mean is like, how high do you go to where it's just not even feasible anymore? And how high are those A&Ms and those UTs and those Alabamas and whoever else is actually able to play in that pool? How high are they willing to go to sacrifice it all for the sake of? Would it surprise you at all if Jimbo won like 9 games this year and he gets $12 million per year starting next year? Like, would that really shock you at all? No, absolutely right. That's what I mean. So it's like, at what point do you just go, okay, $20 million's too much even for Saban? Like, where do we get to where everybody finally goes, kind of like they've had to do multiple times in college sports here recently, they go like, okay, this is kind of ridiculous now.
They also, and I've said this
and I'm not rooting against people making money, to be clear, for that guy that's always in the, no, I'm all for it. I'm curious is like, at what level do you get to when you're already making more than a lot of NFL guys are?
Yeah, but part of the thing that college athletics has done is they negotiate against themselves.
Oh, all the time.
So, yeah, you probably need to keep, like, Nick Saban, even though I don't think he'd go back to the NFL would love to have him again because he's, obviously a football genius and, somebody would pay him. So, yeah, for Nick Saban, you got to pay him a lot of money to keep him out of the NFL. For Jimbo Fisher, you really don't. But, A&M's going to do that. And where's Jimbo going to go? Like, I know there was always the threat of LSU out there, but A&M has more money than LSU. So if it's about money and it's about all that stuff, then LSU, as far as, the free market, cannot offer. I mean, they can offer a lot, but like A&M can always top it. A&M, has all that oil money. So again, where's Jimbo going? Like, where would he go? Because he can just always get a raise. And as long as he's 8, 9, 10 wins, they're going to be pretty happy, especially if he sneaks in a win against Alabama and LSU. And eventually, if he wins a national title, they'll give him 20. I mean, because they're crazy.
Stubby 1080